Okay, so when you are writing your Criterion C for the magnetic force lab, remember on your data table, you need a descriptive title. So what does that mean? That means that it can't just say data table. It needs to tell me what is in your data. So what did you test and what were you measuring? So you should have both your independent and your dependent variables in that descriptive title. All right. The other thing that you have to have is you have to have your headings. So if you were measuring number of paper clips picked up, you need to say number of paper clips picked up. You also need your multiple trials. Remember, you should have 5 trials, right? You should have at least 5 trials to make your average. And then remember, at below your data table, you do need to summarize. All right, so real briefly, in 1, maybe 2 sentences, just describe what happened with your data. Okay, so then the second part, remember, is your conclusion. All right, and we are still writing them in the rainbow format. You do not need to color code them if you do not want to, but I recommend that you do. It makes it easier to grade, and it makes it easier for you to make sure that you did what you were supposed to. And remember, red, this is where you're talking about our purpose. Why did we bother? What kind of question, right? This is where your question that you came up with goes. You have your orange, where you are restating what your hypothesis was, right? Your if, then, and because. Okay? And remember that because piece comes from your background. You have your yellow. And remember your yellow, this is where you are talking about the data that you collected. You're going to want to refer back to your data table and or graph if you made one. Your green, this is where you state whether your data supports or does not support your hypothesis and why. Okay, don't just say that my data does not support it or my data does support it. Make sure you give me your why. Then you've got your blue. This is where you talk about, was your procedure appropriate to answer your questions? All right. What errors happened, if any, and how can you improve it? All right, all 3 of those things. And remember, you want to try to go for 2 improvements. Okay? And then your purple, this seems to give people a little bit of issue. Your purple is not just any next experiment. I want to know what's the next step or the next experiment for this question, okay? For your question. So look back at your red and look back at your orange. You want, what's the extension? What's the next thing? If you just did an experiment like we did with magnetic forces, purple cannot be a question about, hey, I want to look at, blowing up balloons. It has nothing to do. You have to come off of the question that you had. All right, guys, so that is your assignment for today. That is to write your Criterion C lab report and turn it in on Google Classroom. I will be grading your Criterion B and your Criterion C. If you have questions, please email me or leave a comment here on the assignment on Google Classroom. All right, guys, good luck. We'll get through this together.